When I was young, there used to be a show called The Practice. If you're a fan of legal drama, you've probably come across Boston Legal. Now, The Practice was before Boston Legal. And I was in high school, and there was always that question, what do you want to do when you grow up, right? So I had three options. I would either be a pilot, or be a surgeon, or be a lawyer, all right? The piloting thing was not making any sense. And I think the only pool was that where I lived, we were on the flight path. So every day at 12:50 p.m., there was always a plane passing overhead. So I was always looking up at the sky, and I was like, I think I'd want to be in one of those things one day. So hiyo ikaenda kando. Then about being a surgeon, one day someone, I think, hit them, was hit. There was an altercation and the nose bled. And immediately I saw the blood. I almost fainted myself. So I figured Surgeon X. But one day I went to visit a relative of mine, and the practice used to be, before Netflix, you had to wait a whole week to watch an episode of anything. You guys, you don't know how you're having it nice. So it was a Saturday. I just happened to go to one of my relatives' houses, and I sat there, and on comes this program called The Practice. And I watched Bobby. Bobby was the main character. And man, I have never seen myself in someone like that. And I was like, that is exactly what I'm going to do with my life. So that put the seed for me. But looking back, even when I was in primary school, I was in the debate team. We were nyoroshaing people. I think in my year we won in like Nairobi. We were the #1 debate team because we used to do, I don't know if they still do that. We used to have divisional, then interdivisional, and then provincial. So you start at the lowest level. I don't know if they still do that. But yes, we'd go all the way to Nairobi, and now we are competing against the top schools in Nairobi, and we nyorosha them in debate. So I think it was always there. But I also grew up in a society where I observed a lot of injustice. I would see questions of police harassment. I would see you'd be sent to the shop at 6:30 or at 7, go buy some milk. And we used to have this thing we called Msako, which was police just drive by in their, it used to be called a Mahindra. Nowadays, I think it's a Land Cruiser. Those of you who went to the Mandamano, you know what I'm talking about. You see that thing people are thrown inside? Yes, it used to be called a Mahindra because Kenya's relationship with Indians by there has come a long way. Those days we used to buy cars from Indians. Now Indians are running our airports. But that's a story for another day. So guys would get arrested and you'd be taken to the cells and you'd be told, you're being charged with being drunk and disorderly. You're a kid in class 7. You're a minor. And that would be an opportunity now for cops to make your parents go to the station and have to pay a bribe for you to be released. And now you have to realize I was also coming from a society really where we were all poor. We were joined by poverty. You know, everyone has the things that bring them together. For us, it was poverty. So you can imagine to ask someone for 1,000 shillings or 500 or 20,000 shillings, it means you have completely turned their world upside down. Because this person probably lives in a house where they pay rent 1,500 a month. Then you've arrested their child and you've told them to get this child out, you need 5,000. So I observed this growing up, and I would say I burned with righteous anger seeing all this. So deep down, I always knew the best path I have in terms of addressing some of these things is through law. Because what I saw with law is lawyers are people who were confident, right? You could articulate yourself, but they also had what I call the license to speak about societal ills, and there's the pushback. There's not a lot of pushback. It's not like someone is asking you, who are you? You're speaking as who? That's the beauty about what it means to be a lawyer. So as we'll be talking about where the politics and law and social change intersect, I think every lawyer is an activist, whether they know it or not. Because we are all drawn to the practice of law because of the very, very important place of law in society. We understand how law defines society. Law defines the relationships of people with each other, the relationships of people with their governments, the relationship with with the governor and the governed. That is a space that we find ourselves in. So for me, thank you. I finished my undergrad. Then, now my path of activism begins in 2014. Because in 2014, something interesting happens in Kenya. One day, a woman was walking in town. You know Embasava stage? There's a stage called Embasava just behind archives. Huh? There are Embasava matatus there. A lady was walking, and some men, catcall her. And I think there's an altercation. There's an exchange of words. These men decide this lady is not even properly dressed. So what are we going to do? We're going to undress her. You're in primary school, so maybe you're not even on social media. You may not remember this. But in 2014, a woman gets undressed in town. But also, this is a time when smartphones are becoming a thing, right? So everyone is there recording, and that recording is put on Twitter. It used to be Twitter, now it's X. I was seated at home. I had just finished my undergrad in August, so I was ready to join KSL in February of the next year. So this, I think, was around November. I was like, no, I don't know this woman, but no, that can't happen. But that story only caught our attention because later we realized this had actually happened in several places. In Kisii, it had happened. In town itself, it had happened. And so I went online and I saw guys say, we have this thing called My Dress, My Choice, which is a fight by women to say, no one should police what a woman gets to wear. You're indecently dressed, so let's undress you. Not even let's dress you, let's undress you because you're indecent. So I go to the streets. We have one of the biggest protests in Kenya at the time, 2014, My Dress, My Choice. It was fantastic. And that began my journey in activism. After that, I went for another protest. We were protesting against police brutality. After that, we have some GSU guys who go to Baragoi to try and deal with this story of cattle rustling has been there for a while. So 42 cops are killed, and the government says nothing. And we say, come on, these guys had families. Why isn't the government saying anything? So we go to the streets, and the commissioner, this we call commissioners, the inspector general, he resigns after that. Then Kidogo, the guy who's your president today, builds a hotel. It's so interesting. You know, about 3 years before the incident, he's featured on Citizen TV. They do a feature on him, and he's talking about how he's discovered exercise. His doctors told him he has to exercise. Okay. Then he says, come and show you a project I'm working on. He takes them to this place on Langata Road and says he's putting up a hotel. That hotel is now called Weston. These are facts that are in the public domain. So now, it seems that our great thinker, when he was building his hotel, he never anticipated that one day he would not have enough parking for his hotel guests. So what happens? Weston becomes a traffic nightmare for Langata Road users because first you're getting government work. All these government vehicles have to be parked somewhere. You don't have enough parking. So what starts happening is people start parking on the road. Our good brother, like Ahab in the Bible, looks over and notices there's a vineyard for Naboth. He's like, next door here kuna kiwanja kubwa sana. You know what, I could just put a wall and build a parking and I've solved my problem completely. Only the problem was, it was a primary school playground. And they had cut off the playground, and the space they had left for the children to play, I don't think it was even from this pillar to that pillar. We say, no, you can't do that. So we go to Occupy Playground. Before you guys occupied Parliament, you occupied Playground. We went and we brought down Ruto's wall at Langata Road Primary. And what then happens after that is the President Uhuru Kenyatta says, hiya, there's a crisis. Primary schools, and actually schools in Kenya, don't have title deeds to the property they are on. That's why they are susceptible to a lot of land grabbing. So the president says, we are now going to set up a system where every school has a title deed. But that was also the first time that primary school children were being tear-gassed in their schools. And I remember there was a lot of outrage because police actually lobbed tear gas at kids, class 2 kids, class 3 kids. Those children are Gen Zs today. All right? So just to give you an idea of, like when you're looking at Kenya's trajectory, then after that, of course, I realized, oh my God, we're going to the streets, we're doing all these things. But surely there has to be a better way to push for social change. So I joined Katiba Institute, and Katiba Institute is doing a lot of amazing work. They're going to court and they're challenging laws and they're challenging decisions by the executive, and I'm like, fantastic, this is a great place. So I go to Katiba, and I don't even go in as a lawyer. I think downstairs in the earlier session, you're talking about how do you gain entrance into some of these places. I didn't join Katiba as a lawyer. I actually joined Katiba as a social media guy because I was very good with social media. So I went to the executive director and I told him, you guys are doing an amazing job, but no one knows about it. So why don't I help you set up your social media so that people understand if you're going to court to challenge a statute, this is the reason you are doing it. This is the reason why we want the court to declare it null and void. So I go in, and then I tell them, now that I am in, I'm done with KSL. This is 2016. So I was in KSL 2015. So 2016, I'm like, you guys, you apply to be a pupillage center. They say, we've never actually been a pupillage center. We never offered pupillage. So I tell them, why not apply? So we apply, and they get it. So I end up doing the communication, which is a passion of mine, but I also end up doing my pupillage at the same time at Katiba Institute. And as part of Katiba Institute, one day a gentleman called Maina Kiai goes to court, to the High Court of Kenya, and says, you know, we need to determine as a country, at what point does an election happen? Because in the earlier election, what had happened is, you guys, the form 34A, B, and C, okay? A form could be filled at the polling station, but when it goes to Bomas, there's a different form with different results, and it's accepted because we say the form at Bomas is the final form. So Maina Kiai goes to the High Court, and Katiba Institute is supporting the petition, and he says, no, voting happens at the polling station. Once that form has been signed and the results have been entered, you cannot alter it. Does the government listen? Does IBC listen? No. That is why Uhuru Kenyatta lost his first election in 2017. Because Maina Kiai had gone to court about 3 years before that to challenge how election transmission was occurring. So, of course, at Katiba, we do all this amazing work. And I realize this work is great because now we are actually, the protests were great, right? Because they're helping us to push for the change we want, and they're helping us to agitate. But then also we at Katiba, I realize there's another step that can be taken, and that is that you can actually have lifelong impact through what the courts are doing. Because one of the beauty of Kenya's 2010 Constitution is that it placed people at the center. The Constitution before that did not have you and I at the center of it. It was a document to prop up the presidency. But this one begins at Article 1 by saying, Article 1:1. Wakili. The people shall, that's all that matters. All sovereign power belongs to the people. That's how the Constitution of Kenya begins, which means that it places you and I at the very center of it. So I would say a lawyer is not divorced from being a social change maker. Because you and I, through the law that we have gone to school and we've been able to learn, we understand the power of law in setting up communities. We understand the power of law in being used to disenfranchise people, in being used to deny people resources. Colonialism was an idea built on a law. If you look at the treaty between Lenana and the British, how did it start? It started with a contract written in English, and it's available now because the British have declassified those files. Lenana hata hakuwa na signature, aliweka fingerprint. So it always starts with the law. So you and I have to see our practice of law and the laws that we are dealing with beyond just the things that we are using for exams and we are using for our transactions. Also to ask ourselves, how is this promoting democracy? How is this promoting constitutionalism? How is this actually helping people? If you look at Moody's ratings, I know we like to talk about Moody's ratings, and they say Kenya is getting a low rating because we have rejected the finance bill. But one of the considerations for Moody's is whether a country has rule of law. Kenya always gets negative ratings because you don't actually have the rule of law in this country properly as it should be. So what is the impact of that on your career? It means that when your client has a dispute, and that dispute is taken to court, do they have confidence that the court is going to look at that dispute in a fair manner? Or is the judge going to be seen on the side? Which means they have no confidence in the system. That affects your work. It affects the ability of someone to come here and set up their business. Let's talk even about how to establish a business. How do you register a company? All those things, all that has an impact in how you do your work as a lawyer. So in the 2024 Occupy Parliament protests, now with my background having participated in these other protests, I knew the drama that is coming. So I went to Central Police Station. The first protest it was the 25th, 18th, sorry, on the 18th. I went to Central Police Station because I knew police don't know how to handle peaceful protesters. Because for police in Kenya, as long as you're on the streets, you are a menace. We need to get rid of you. And even when they were arresting people and bringing them to the station, they would say, these guys are very peaceful. They haven't thrown stones. They haven't done anything. And the question was, why are you arresting them? Because it's just what we do. So people are arrested on the 18th. I put out an alert on Twitter and I say, if there are any lawyers who are available, we need to bail these guys out. And it's just amazing how it all happened, because suddenly there were people reaching out to me. Kidogo, there was a WhatsApp group being formed. I think now it has over 300 lawyers on standby. None of these guys are being paid. We just say someone has been arrested in Kitale. Can anyone assist? Within a few minutes, a lawyer has been found in Kitale. He comes back to the group and says, I have gone, I have talked to the OCS, the guy has been released. Or the guy will be taken to court tomorrow, we're going to deal with it this way. That has been the fantastic way. The doctors look at what we're doing and they say, hey, doctors, let's come together and provide medical services because of the guys who are being arrested and they're being injured. It is that ability, you and I, when you take your oath as an advocate, one of the things you will say is that you're going to uphold the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya. You and I have a duty and a responsibility to ensure that the Constitution of Kenya is upheld, it is promoted, and it is respected. If you fail at that job, we have no country, guys. We have no country. You have nowhere to practice your law. That degree you're working so hard for, it will be a useless degree. So the lawyer can never, ever separate themselves from social change. And really, even from politics. Because when people are discussing politics, they want to find out from the lawyers. Lawyers, what do you think? Because a lawyer must think. A lawyer has an opinion. A lawyer can tell you this is right and this is wrong and this is a reason for it. So as we move forward, one of the things I want to encourage you, and I really have to apologize to you because this was supposed to happen at 11. I have a radio show, and I'm tying this with my next point. I have a radio show it's on a station known as Power Radio. This show happens every Saturday between 1 to 3. What time is it now? It's 12:30. So I have to run because it's on the other side of Nairobi. So please forgive me because I'm going to have to leave. But can I tell you something? Let me stand for this. Can I tell you something you guys need to do? You're getting into the career. I think last year, when I was joining, I'm number 17,047. Okay? So it means at the time I was signing the roll, 17,000 lawyers had been admitted in Kenya. Now I think we are close to 30,000. So you're getting into a career where, first, I don't think we are too many lawyers, because 30,000 against a population of 55 million means that they still, people actually need lawyers. The question maybe sometimes is on affordability, and that can be resolved. But can I give you a secret? As you get into your practice, please identify the things you're passionate about and speak about them. Find ways to speak about them. Write articles about the things you're passionate about. Do those TikTok videos. Explain this bill. This is what the bill is saying. Because if anything, this Occupy protests have shown us is that Kenyans have an appetite for legal knowledge. And one of the ways, as an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, when you become one very soon, one of the ways you'll set yourselves apart from your peers is your ability to actually put your head up. And the beauty is that you're in the perfect career to put your head up, because wakili wote ni kierere. Sisi wote ni kierere. It's accepted. Sawa? So there's no glory in being shy in the legal profession. No, we all know each other. This is a place for you to come and be shameless and to have as much audacity as you want to have. You're in the right place. Sawa sawa. So don't hold back at your no. Lawyers, we are always pushing the boundaries, and you're trying to see how much more, how much more can we actually get. So that's your work. So as you get into the practice of law, you need to find things you're passionate about, talk about them, write about them, educate the public. Because the lawyer's first responsibility is not even to his client. Your first responsibility is to the Constitution. You are an officer of the court. You have an obligation to actually educate your fellow citizens on the law. Sawa sawa? Yes, my brother.
As an individual, I have an idea of a certain law that I think needs to be maybe ring-fenced or introduced or reintroduced into the public. Do you do that at Katiba Institute?
So first, I am not at Katiba Institute now. I must have failed to say that. But that's one of the things that happens at Katiba Institute. So if you'd like to challenge a law, they're able to do that. However, by virtue of being a Kenyan, you guys remember locus standi, right? Hiyo imeisha Kenya. Everyone has locus standi in this country. Because an issue does not even have to affect you directly. The Constitution now empowers you to actually go to court on behalf of someone else or on behalf even of the general public. If someone punches me today, you can actually go to court on my behalf to protect those rights. So that is how it has opened up. That's how you have people like Omtata who've become very vocal and become huge figures, because they have taken advantage of that provision of the Constitution. So yes, it's available to you at a personal level. You can do it. You can file a case tomorrow at the High Court of Kenya if you want to challenge any law. And it's now for you to go and argue it out. So don't even look at what Katiba can do. The thing you should be asking Katiba is to tell them, I have this case, I've taken it to court. Would you mind coming in as interested parties or as amicus curiae? Wacha nimalizie hapo. Si ndio? Thank you very much. God bless all of you.
So, Catherine Bui, human rights advocate. So my family, my dad is a financial sector family. My mom's side is academia. And from teachers, lecturers, curriculum people. So they were sure I'm falling into that sector, and I ended up doing CPAs at Strathmore. But at the same time, I got a chance to watch Ali McBeal. And randomly, because of her hair, I liked it. So it's a very simple non-issue. So I told my dad one day, because he used to be those very conservative religious person, you can't watch some vulgar. But one day he found me watching Ali McBeal, and I told him I want to be a lawyer. And since that day, he sat with me every single episode. So I just like, once you become a parent, know how to support the next generation. So I went to law school. Not even before that, I did a lot of co-curricular activities, and that's something you have to invest in. Whether it's Kenya Model United Nations, whether it's internships, look beyond the desktop. If you have a chance, look beyond what is at the table. I did a lot of internships. First year, I got an internship. Second year, another internship. So by the time I'm coming out of undergraduate, I have 1 year plus of experience. So I thought I would go into financial. I did all the exams, PwC, Ernst & Young, Deloitte, all those tests. I never got in. And I'm thinking, why am I failing? I have a law degree, I have a CPA, why am I failing? And then someone tells me, oh, you've done a bit of human rights. There's an internship at the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. So I apply, I do the interview, I don't know the basics. Who is the commissioner? I don't know. The constitution, I'm dotting on issues. And they're like, but you've done some experience. So that started my 1 year, my 10 years in the commission. And I grew from there. I recently transitioned to Article 19, and now I'm focusing on civic space. Yes, I'll just mention a few things that I believe, and also highlight a few sectors that you should consider. The gentleman, I'll start with you. You've mentioned, how do you cause impact? I recently met a lady who says 15 years back, she was writing to the Katibas and the Human Rights Commissions about the Finance Act. No one was listening to her. She was like, this Finance Act, we need to do something as lawyers, because her articles are what people are referring to. Her pages is what people are looking at. So your impact is not the footprint we need, but it is a step forward from where we are at. It takes generations to change a culture. So what we are doing now, even with the finance bill, we know it won't complete the cycle. We still have an election in 2 years. We still have other steps to make. So whatever has been done is not wasted. I think that's something we need to remember as a generation or as a society. Also, consider the opportunities of extremes. As we change a civil culture, a system, consider the extremes. What if diplomacy can work better than tyranny? What if? Because we are so, sometimes we know the Mau Mau era, they had to fight. But even as they were fighting in the bush, there were people at the table discussing. So we have to think broadly. I believe there is chance for table discussions as much as there's time for the street work. That's my position. And I believe a lot of actors in the civil society are pursuing extremes. There are guys to go to court, but there are guys to go to parliament and meet with committees. So find your space. It's not just everyone. And what I learned in this sector, once the Gen Zs are done on the streets, they pass on the petition to us. Me in civil society, I have the mandate to go to court. Then I look for an institution, what we call constitutional commissions and independent offices. They are the ones to go to parliament. So everyone has a role. I don't expect Gen Zs to be in court. No offense. You've done your part. It's the same way if you go to an event. There'll be an MC. They won't give the main speech. There'll be a guest of honor. They won't do the emceeing. There's an usher. Everyone has a role in this dice, or this table. Find your place and maximize it. Where can you look for opportunities? And what are the stepping stones? Sometimes we overlook grassroots organizations. Do not. Those are the people who rise. Those are the people who, if you want to cause social change at the lowest level, look for organizations. Form those associations, CBOs. Look for them. They also have a lot of opportunities for growing your career, for growing your experience. So that if you step into this sector, you fully understand what exactly you're stepping into. And I'll mention that when it comes to the risks. If you're not in the grassroots, then join national interventions. And that's where the Katiba comes in, the ICJ Kenya, FIDA Kenya, those organizations that have presence, those organizations that are doing at the national level, consider them. They have periodic internships and they are very easy to just learn from them. Next is national level. There are 16 plus constitutional commissions and independent offices. They all recruit. They all have internships. They all have attachments. Where can you find your place? I got one once upon a time. It took me 10 years to move out. So where can you find? And I believe what I like about those institutions, we are already paying taxes for them to exist. We already, you and I, ushuru ndio wanatutegemea. So I like working with them a lot, and I loved working for them because, yeah, tunalipa anyway. They get a salary whether they work or not. So you might as well give them work. And that's where Wanjeri was talking about, if you have a concern, take it to those institutions. They don't charge for their services. They take on strategic and public interest litigation. They take on capacity building. They take on trainings. They do a lot of academia engagements. I know some who've even opened like clubs or in the universities so that they engage on a one-on-one. So how can you plug in? I'll also consider regional bodies. So who are the regional institutions? At Article 19, we are Eastern Africa. So we like having students around us. We have attachments every 3 months. We stopped pupillage, but it's something we consider occasionally. And then lastly, at the AU, at UN level, that was mentioned in the earlier session. So I've mentioned, go for co-curricular activities. Look beyond, whatever you're interested, go start somewhere. Wanjeri said it, just start. Second, get individual or personal mentorship. This session is good, but if you do not speak to even one of the panelists today, you've missed an opportunity. Always get mentorship. It doesn't have to be for life. It doesn't have to be every other day you're meeting, but learn from someone. If you get into an internship, connect to someone. Grow and understand, what do they do? Why is their world like that? And do I want it to venture into that world? I know I'm speaking fast because I know Myron is. Next, attend networks and events and partnerships. My current job came because I was in a partnership network. I went to an interview and I know the panelists. And it's not something I had to bribe for. It's something, they already know your work. The way you say build a brand, they know you will deliver. They know you speak for this, you stand for this. So when you go to a meeting as an intern, don't even use this. I'm an intern for this and this, never say that. I'm an associate. Find the lowest level category they have. Introduce yourself with a standing. Or if you can't, I'm an advocate. What's the worst they will do? They won't ask for your CV. So always interact in every meeting. If you go to one table and it's not progressing your conversation, move to the next one after break. Meet and interact with people. Not for jobs, not for anything, but for that understanding. Who are they and where are they at? And how can we build each other? Don't just be a receiver, but also be a giver. Because people want to know in your sector. Like today, I'm coming here as 10 years after I left here. 14, sorry. Okay, 12. But I'm wondering, what are you guys doing that we can venture into as Article 19? So how do we, when you go to a network, exchange, not just receive, and not just be bored on your phone or on your devices, interact. And lastly, what was said, continuous learning. Every year, do a course. No matter how short, no matter how simple, do a course. If that's something I learned the hard way. Do a course. The free ones are overwhelming. Do them. Sawa sawa. What are the risks? Social stigma. There's a lot of hate that comes to human rights activists. It's there. And when you're a woman, it's even worse. You're told you're ignoring your family, you are sleeping around. The hate is there. So mentally, state victimization and pressure. I know my phone is tapped. I know I'm being followed once in a while. I know, there's a lot of state attention in my organization, as an individual, that is a reality I live with. Financial burden. We are not as rich as the guys you saw on the first panel. We are not as flamboyant. Our institutions have money. That does not necessarily mean I have money. So there's a financial situation you have to understand and decide for yourself. And lastly, fatigue and burnout. You've done protests. He says the first protest was on 18th. The first protest was on 6th of June. Last year and this year. But no one remembers. And we did the laps. People were arrested. Lawyers came through. This fatigue and burnout is as real in this sector as is any sector.
All right. So I prefer standing. So allow me. Mine will be quick fast because we have quite limited time. So maybe I will start with my story. Then I hope it builds into something. So I normally tend to think that my life is full of coincidences and contradictions. In fact, the first time I met Catherine, we were in a faraway land. In Africa, though, we had gone for... Remember what she said about co-curricular activities? Who has ever heard of moot court? Yes, we were at a moot court competition, all African moot court competition. Who knows of that one? Yes, in fact, we were competitors. We were in Cotonou, Benin. So that's where we met. So yes, anyway, that's besides the point. So why do I say my life is full of contradictions? Or rather, coincidences? This topic is so relevant to me because growing up, of course, as any young boy, I wanted to be a pilot. But then as I got slightly older, I was so interested in everyday politics. So I actually wanted to be a politician. There's this very young aunt of mine who we are very good friends. So he just sat me down one day and was asking, because she could not see a straightforward career path once I do political science. And for me, I just wanted to do political science to learn the art of politics. Yeah, that was the thing for me. Then she just sat me down and told me, I think at this time, that's when Obama had just wowed the entire world. So she was like, I mean, look at Obama. Obama is a lawyer. Look at Bill Clinton. He is a lawyer. Look at Abraham Lincoln. Look at Winston Churchill. She named quite a wide array of interesting politicians who are lawyers. Erwin Skodek, James Orengo. There was a whole list of guys who are brilliant politicians, but their basis was law. And she's like, I mean, you can influence greatly and more change if you actually had a proper grounding in law as a lawyer. Then you can do whatever it is that you want to do. That's how I ended up in law school. That's how I ended up doing law. And ever since I stepped into law school, I think that was the best decision. That aunt of mine was sent by God. So that's how I ended up being a lawyer. Now, after my schooling, many other coincidences happened in my life that led to me telling you I wear many hats. In 2018, we lost my stepfather. So always the same as Wanjeri, I loved, interestingly growing up, I loved the practice, Boston Legal. I don't know if anyone knows Boston Legal. There's a guy called Alan Shaw. You guys would know Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey, what is that series? You guys, man. Not Suits. You guys, help me, man, Gen Z. But anyway, I'll remember. Blacklist. Kevin Spacey, is it? He's called Blacklist, right? Alan Shaw. So he was Alan Shaw in Boston Legal and The Practice. That was my guy. Oh my goodness. Out of this world. So of course, I always follow through. So those things, of course, being into politics, you would always like public speaking. So those are some of the things that I would always try and attempt to be good at. So I lose my stepfather, and at the funeral, of course, I speak. Then later, the pastor who was conducting the session is like, by the way, I think you have an interesting mind, and our church will require some services, but then we will tell you we will not pay you, but then if you're willing to come and help our bishop, we would be glad. And I was like, I mean, it's pro bono, and I mean, you're giving back to society, so why not? He scheduled a meeting with the bishop, I think like a month later, and I was told of a position that I had never learned existed in the Anglican Church called a diocesan chancellor. That's where the chancellor comes from. So what this is, you're just a legal advisor to the bishop and the diocese, the church that is. So I normally say the contradiction in that is, you know, I normally tell people, church is a theocracy. While we live in a democracy, the church is a theocracy, because then it is governed by the doctrines that are set, and the leadership of the church is, for all intents and purposes, forgive my language, a lord unto himself. Because then the assumption is he gives account to his maker, right? So the direction the bishop or the leader of the church takes, that's the direction the entire church takes. So you can imagine me with my democracy and all those things, someone who is schooled in a theocratic sense is a bit of a challenge, isn't it? But then that's how I find myself there. So I get in there, do my thing. I enjoy it. I really did enjoy it. While I'm there, Occupy Playground had just happened. And my diocese is in far-flung Kakamega County. It's the Diocese of Butere. So when Occupy Playground happened, the government gave a directive that all title deeds for all schools had to be in. They had to get their titles, and the custodian of those titles had to be the minister, the cabinet secretary for treasury at the time. So what happens? My diocese is among the oldest in the country. So they run a school, a very brilliant school. They are sponsored, not that they run, they are sponsored to a school called Butere Girls High School. I don't know if anyone knows of that school. So the church donated land. In fact, that land was donated by the community to the church. Then the church hived off bits of that land to the school. So remember, this is a huge piece. That is, they had segmented it into three. There was a place for the church, a place for this school, and then they were to build a school, another institution for special needs kids. So what happens at the time, just before my appointment as diocesan chancellor, there was the bishop who appointed me had a tussle with the school. He was the chair of the school, and they accused him of very many things. So because of the altercation, he was removed as chair. And these guys took advantage of Occupy Playground and had the entire land on one title for the school. So the church that donated this land to the school became a squatter on its own land. Now, I find myself in this space. So many things happen in between. My bishop has to resign. In the Anglican Church, we have elections. Yeah, to get the next guy, you have elections. So it's serious politics. So everybody looks at me suspiciously because I was appointed by the previous bishop. But I conduct the elections because now I am the IEBC. As the chancellor, you're the IEBC. So I also a lord unto myself at some point. So, but interestingly for me, I was not involved in the politics. I did not even understand what was going on. I knew what I needed to do, and I just did it. Just do the right thing. That's what I did. And interestingly, we actually got the very first lady bishop in the Anglican Church. The very first full lady bishop. All right? Ladies. Amen? Yeah, so then, of course, people were still looking at me very suspiciously, but I was just doing my thing diligently as I should. Then now all these other things now come up. There's the land issue. There are so many other things in between. But because of what I had done and what they had seen me doing, then they thought the only person who, the board of the school, the church, had to second 3 people to the board of the school. And because this was a serious issue, this young boy was sent to sit in that board of the school so that then I can be able to drive the agenda of this land. We are still dealing with it, but we're on a story. So if there's someone who wants some work, I can give you that one to deal with. So then as that was happening, I was also then, the church also has a trust. Because of my work at the church and the school, they needed what they call a managing trustee. And they also thought this young man can, I think, do that job. And so I ran my practice in Nairobi. I advised my diocese in the village as the diocesan chancellor. And I'm also a managing trustee of what we call ICMA, African Institute of Contemporary Mission and Research. It's stationed in Butere. Its work majorly is just mission and research, but mostly training both lay and clergy on mission work and how to improve livelihoods back in the village. So that's that's my short story. Now, I have a slightly interesting perspective on politics and social change. Remember, from the onset, I wanted to join politics. And I have participated in demonstrations, but then mine are seriously political demonstrations from 2007. That was my very first demonstration. How many were born in 2007? Okay, how many were dancing in 2007? But who remembers 2007 when elections were stolen? That was my very first demonstration, very active. So with that, with every demonstration for me and every election, I always think this country, we go through different cycles, but then we learn very interesting lessons and then build up onto the next. All right? So we had a fair share of lessons in that, whatever. Then in 2013, I decided to attempt to be more active, now joining some of these campaign platforms and stuff like that. Thoroughly disappointed. We went to the Supreme Court. I was a researcher for one of the teams in the Supreme Court. Very interesting verdicts. We had a problem with Willie Mutunga, with the decision not to admit evidence, but quite interesting. We moved through between 2013 and 2017. There were so many demonstrations, if you guys can remember, that some influenced change, no matter how small they may be. Some didn't, but then the 2013, interesting, the 2013 election petition attempted to improve the 2017 elections, hence the petition by Maina Kiai, for example, that now the Maina Kiai's, for me, what was fundamental about the Maina Kiai's petition was the fact that it was decided, the court's verdict was that, what was this about the polling station being the final decision? The results of the polling station were the final results. And that was, it was very interesting because that is the reason as to why the 2017 election was nullified. So you see, every struggle has led to some change. We might not see how far the needle is moved, but it moves. Up until 2022, I still participated very actively. But then that's when I was totally disappointed. I just said, I give up with this country. And then until the Gen Z reawakened me. Now, the reasons why I say I have an interesting perspective to social change and politics is because we always think politics is just the noise that politicians make out there, or the streets protests, or, politics goes as far as how much the salt on your table is. That's politics, because it's those guys who then influence what that is. But then we forget, it's cyclical. How do those guys get there? Those guys, the first place how they get there is, one, we as the Brighton fellows have failed at educating the very small guy, the guy in the village who comes to weed your mother's shamba, or the guy who washes your cars. Because look at it this way. Most of us, I can bet my life, are not in any political party. At least subscribers of a political party. How many are active subscribers of any political party? We are not. Now, 90% of the candidates on the ballot paper come from political party. Correct? 90%. Very few independents get to that paper. Because of how expensive our elections are, very few independent fellows will be able to manage a campaign. All right? Now, these 90% of people who find their way on the ballot via a political party are nominated by people like me and you. Actually, not like me and you. You see, because we are not those guys who, Boda riders and your Shamba boys. Because all the guys politicians whip up, they get them enrolled onto a political party. Those are the guys they use to nominate. Those guys don't care who's on that ballot. They've been given their 50 shillings, 100 bob, 200 bobs to make sure this guy is nominated. Are you seeing the cycle? So by the time you're getting your final guys on that list, those are guys who have been picked by people who care less. Their interest was 200 shillings. So for me, the very first place I normally say we need to start to change is, first of all, our minds and how we view politics and social change. Because then the moment you change your mindset and realize that whatever you say, even right now, what we are doing is impact, right? Because we are trying to learn from each other as to how we see life, how we view politics, how we view change, correct? So if we started by that guy who washes your car, the guy who brushes your shoes, starting conversations, making them walk. Because it doesn't take much. We will not all be on the streets protesting. We will not have platforms like Wanjeri's or Catherine's where we would shout our voices hoarse. We are not in parliament. But where we are, what can we do? Furthermore, why don't we join those political parties? Whatever your political inclination is, join. Because my argument is, and I fall prey to it because then I joined, I left, I joined, I leave. But then, if we join those parties, then we attempt to be active. Because you see, many of those guys in those parties are never active. They're just there by name. But then join, attend those meetings, be a change influencer in that party. Influence change within it, whichever party it is. We have enough parties in this country. Pick one. Pick one. But then I always say, it is also important for you to be strategic. I will not just join a party for the sake of it. Because I want to see change. I want to see impact. So I join a party that I know has a high likelihood of bringing impact. Of one, we gaining power. Because, I mean, politics is about gaining power, correct? So we're not just joining political parties for the sake of it. So we see him walk. No matter how bad a party is, join. Then, while you're in there, why don't you attempt to influence change? Change from there. Attend when there are nominations. You should be one of those people who are mobilizing people. You don't have to be the candidate. But you can mobilize from the MCA, because we normally forget an MCA is a very critical position. Right down there, from that MCA all the way up, influence who that candidate would be. Because at the end of the day, those fellows are the ones who will be decision makers. Sawa. And that is my perspective. So start from somewhere. We cannot all be politicians. We can't all be activists. But let us start from somewhere. Let us offer our support when we can. For those who want to join the civic space, please do. If you have the valve and you have the stamina for it, please do. But if you don't, there are so many other places you can go. Just from where you are, there are so many things that you can do that will result in change. Sawa sawa. Maswali. We can now take 2-3 questions, then we can.
I wanted to say that you've taken as, it was brief, but it was a nice one. I did a dissertation on something to do with, I interlinked law and politics all the way from the time they were carrying coffins for Paul Ngei to recently the 2022. And it has really inspired me. I feel like what you've said, it has really made me, I think it was a good job there. Thank you.
Asante sana.
Hello, my first question is to her. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Yes, I wanted to ask, you told us that all the way from first year to fourth year to even after it, you're doing internships and you're doing a lot of co-curricular activities. How did you manage to get internships and how did you interlink them with your work in law? And then my second question will be to him. One thing that I really remembered from your talk was when you said something about them picking the boda guys and all those people and putting them all together, giving them 50 shillings and 100 shillings. Actually, I am quite shocked to discover that I didn't know that actually anyone could join a political club or a political party, yes, a political party, because I always thought there were qualifications put in place. So why aren't there qualifications put in place for someone to be part of a political party? Because that's now affecting everyone else in a way or two.
You only need to have 2 qualifications to join a political party. You need to be an adult and need to be a voter. Those are the only qualifications to join any political party. So there is nothing else. So just that, now it is important. The reasons why it's very relevant for you to join that party is because your joining and your decisions as to how that party conducts itself has a reverberating effect on how the leadership of this country then turns out.
You'd be surprised you're actually a member of a political party. because data, personal data is being stolen and swiped and being sold. So there's a time we were doing, before elections, there's a code you send to check if you've been affiliated to a political party. So you might, I don't remember the code, but you might want to check that out. So internships, one, I would walk around Tao sometimes with my CV. I would go online and look for organizations just to find out. I did one with ICRC, Nairobi. I did one with Kenya Christian Lawyers Fellowship. I did one at a law firm. So I was just looking out. And you enter without knowing. So once you get a call, you start researching and finding out exactly where can I plug in. And send your CV far and wide. Like just start somewhere and move with the flow. Network, go for events and find out, do they have an opportunity? Because I know we have an opportunity at Article 19. So question is, who's bringing their CV before the other?
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Elias, a first-year student at the University of Nairobi. First is actually maybe to echo what she was saying, and from what I understood, is that just like the gentleman said, that the person who becomes members of a political party have that very reverberating effect on how leadership is. And she was asking, maybe it's something that we need to think of, a change that we can actually drive, that can there be more qualification apart from being an android in joining a political party? Because if people who don't understand the effect of leadership join a political party and make a bad decision, then that affects everybody else. Maybe she was thinking about whether we can do a change that now puts more qualification, like you need to be landed to a certain level, you need to have certain level of IQ and all that. So probably something that we can look at without like acting like we are limiting other people from participating in a democratic processes.
I need to clarify. There is a difference between being a candidate for a position and being a member of a party. Because the very same way, as a voter, what is your qualification for a voter? Just be an adult.
An adult, yes.
Just be an adult. So to be a member of a political party, actually, I would be so against any more qualifications than just being a Kenyan and being a voter. Because then, even that border guy, there are matters that I might not understand that affect him, that will require his voice somewhere. But then you as an intellectual need to stand guard and be present to offer intellectual advice. So then you guard the conversation. I get the difference. The very best place to start is in your own house. With your mother, your father, your siblings, your friends, your surrounding. Because then you don't because sometimes we want to box everything. So then we want to either do it in a club or at a school. Start with you, because you see, that where you are, that's the very first place you need to start influencing change. In your own very home. Sawa? So don't start to be structured. You start with where you are. As you find your way, now you get your niche. Sawa?
Most obliged.
Last question.
What you spoke about is basically about civic culture and the culture of the society. And also what you're doing and what the two of you are actually advocating for. But you realize it's reaching a point whereby the culture is still there. Gen Zs have made the things are moving, but the political class is still there. It's still the same old guys. Why don't you guys change the culture and come up with a new political dispensation that we don't have to keep choosing these old guys? Because now it seems like they've solved the issue, but it's the same old players. The monkeys are the same. Why don't we have the baboons in the field? You know?
Let me tell you. Can I give you a very interesting fact? If you remember from 1997 elections, just not the presidency, let's not look at the top 5 politicians, just everybody below them. What's the turnover of a members of parliament? Turnover. Do you realize it is 60-70% of those guys go home? We get new guys every day. 60-70%. So the monkeys are us, not the politicians. Because you see, that's exactly why I'm saying, that was the very reason as to why I was saying, we join those parties. Because when we join those parties, you will know, Myron is this kind of person. Catherine is that kind of person. He can do this, she can do the other. But by the time we normally get to the ballot, Myron has influenced, he has his track of boda guys, paid 1,000 of them. Because you'd find some of these guys who get these tickets, they're elected by 1,000 people. You'd be very surprised. At nomination, you guys just pay keen attention to results of nominations. You'd find 1,000 voters. So the guy who has won by 600 votes. And at the end of the day, the electorate, the people who participate in that election are 200,000 people. Who has decided who will be on the ballot? 1,000 people. So it's not about us, because I don't even believe in building new parties, because we have enough. Let's join these very parties that are there. Because you see, the advantage of joining the parties that are there, they already have structure. Because politics is expensive in this country. That's the reality. Politics is extremely expensive. I have participated in campaigns. Last year we were running a secretariat. So I know what it means to be active politically. Join these parties. You might be the only voice. If it's UDA, you think that in your area, UDA is more popular. Join it. You might not like it, but join. Attempt to influence change within that UDA party. So from the ground up, if you're the lone voice who is making sense, people will sit back and listen. Because remember, when you're influencing change, it will not be at a rally. It's in a boardroom. Because you're now an active member of the party. Every meeting that is called, you're there. Anything that is happening, you're active. You realize, because you're actively there making very sensible remarks, 5-6 people will start listening to you and following you. Those 5-6 people is all you probably will need to make an influential change within that party. And in turn, you're getting my point? So for me, it's not about changing. So we change, we get new parties, we change. We always change politicians. Same result. That's the unfortunate reality. And then let's also remember, some of these things, it takes time. It took, Raila has been in politics for how long? He just didn't wake up yesterday and gain the influence that he has. It takes time. He has worked hard. That's the reality. The guys who are there, and let us not forget, they have nascent supporters. Serious ones. It took them time. You don't just wake up one day and now become the most popular guy. Takes time, takes work. Serious work. Are we willing to do that work? So you want new people. Are we willing to do the work? Are we willing to go there, speak to those people, listen to what their concerns are, and be their active voice in the public platforms? Are you willing to go to detention for 9 years? People have put in work. So as we want to change the system, we will remember there is so much work that we need to do. Before then, we can be able to get there. But where do we start? Here. In your house, but you join a party. Sawa? Asanteni sana.